Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome to the MiG-9 late plane review. Now, a plane review is always something different, and especially this one. It's on a chat, it's on a Russian chat, and it's on my first Russian spaded chat. And I absolutely love this thing. But why is that, and why do many people struggle with it? Well, I have to say, at first I struggled with it as well, and then I got more and more upgrades, and I got more and more to the actual playstyle to it. I observed its strengths and weaknesses very early on, and then I also came around to make the guns work, and that might be the key essence of the MiG-9, to know when to use the guns and when not to use the guns, and especially the later part is the key aspect to make the plane in the long run, which is the next aspect, work. So I guess I have a lot of really interesting gameplay. I practically can't show it all, but the key essence is you need to accelerate, then to zoom climb, you need to watch your engine temperature, and you also need then to go into the fight, not as the first one. And this is all theoretical, and this might apply to the overwhelming majority of chats, especially the early ones. The MiG-9, especially the late version in particular, are planes that make this theoretical tips and tricks summary or compilation actually work in practice. You have a very nice matchmaker, especially I played it now for 2 days, and in the minority of games I got up-tiered. The overwhelming majority of games were fights against equal battle rating opponents or even against props. And even when I was up-tiered, I didn't mind it. But in an up-tier there is one big problem, and that's not on the enemy team, that's on your team, and that is called TO4. And let me just explain you this. I mentioned this in mentioning how to fly other jets, for example the Meteor and the Attacker in particular, that when you face the Russians in an up tier at 8.0, you have just a limited amount of time in which you actually can get your kills, because the TO4 will just simply rush in, bomb the mini bases, bomb the main base, and the game is practically over, with the majority of players still being alive, but having invested like 3 to 4 minutes. And then also there's the queue time, which is also like 3 to 4 to 5 minutes, even with 60,000 players online. But I think that's enough rambling. Let's get on with the plane review itself. As usual, let's come to the armor first, and we have two steel platings for the front for partial protection for the pilot, 12 millimeters each, that will protect you from certain machine guns, but I wouldn't rely on it because it saves you in head-ons, or is meant as protection from head-ons, but you know, you have the relative speed to each other, and it seems like this is modeled in, or the pilot gets shot in the foot and dies because of that. And then there's also this bulletproof glass, 55 millimeters, approaching an effective thickness of around about 100 millimeters. But again, I would not rely on this. The key aspect of a jet is not to get hit in the first place, like in most planes. And then there is no armor at all, not in the fuselage, not around the engines, not for the rest of the gun system, and also not in the wing. And then let's directly look at the X-ray. We have fuel tanks actually here in the wing pylons, and also here in the practically the outer wing, and also the wing roots and the center of the fuselage, and also between the engines. Really nice fuel tank placement, interesting one. Then we also have the two engines in the at the bottom of the plane, which is very interesting because that allows this plane to actually belly land. And this belly land, like on the German counterpart, the Me-262, is more effective and to a certain degree also safer than trying to land with the normal landing gear. And I say it's safer, but it's not idiot proof. You can land with like 500 kilometers an hour, but for the normal belly landing, you know, just making contact with the ground, it's not enough. After you made contact with the ground, you also have to drive your nose into the ground with the elevator in a full downturn, so to speak, and then you actually skid on the middle of the fuselage, or skid on the middle of the fuselage, like in the very early days with the Me-163. So you actually have to control with your flaps to the aircraft to prevent one wing driving itself into the ground and then you get destroyed. So, but you know, you have to make it a few times to get used to it, and after that it's actually a no-brainer in my opinion. Then we also have those control cables, and they are rather resistant but not undestroyable. It's not your first primary cause of death, let's put it that way. Your elevators and your rudder are, you know, they also can get shut off by big HE shells, but you know, that's kind of every plane's curse, so to speak. And then we have the armament. And you might notice that the armor plating protects the ammunition boxes, and we have a 37mm N37D cannon with 40 rounds and two 23mm NS32K cannons with 80 rounds per gun. Now, at first the armament placement looks absolutely amazing, centralized in the fuselage, right? Well, there's one problem, and that is that you have a rather slow muzzle velocity armament, the 23mm and the 37mm. Now let's talk a little bit about the weapon system and the ammunition. So let's talk about the actual upgrade way, and I would recommend you to go not for the actual engine upgrades but everything around it for the actual plane performance, especially the airframe and the wings repair together with the cover, and ultimately also the fuselage repair are very important to make the plane more stable, give the plane energy retention, which is very important for the long run playstyle that this plane really excels at, for the boom and zoom aspect. And while, you know, having better and stronger engines is of course important, it's not as important as having better energy retention for a jet. This is counterintuitive, and when you went through your props you might think, well, that's just complete nonsense. Try it out. I personally would recommend it to myself if I would have to do it again. And yeah, the controllability, the energy retention and the durability of the planes, they just are a key aspect. Then we come to the weapon system, and the stock weapons are really bad. They are terrible and they are very inaccurate, and they have a low amount of ammunition. So if you look at the stat card, you can see one 37mm with 40 rounds and one 23mm, or two 23mm guns with 160 rounds between them. So you have 200 rounds in total, and as I said, if you are done with firing the entire ammunition of your 37 and you have fired the 23s parallel to it, you have a remaining 23mm ammunition count of around about 50 to 44 rounds, and that is not a lot, especially when we look at how effective the guns are. Well, it depends. I would recommend, in a nutshell, close quarters engagements, but that's again difficult. And surprisingly enough, despite the strong centralized armament, I never felt really confident in head-ons. It seems just like a waste of ammunition. So for the 37s, I think it's a no-brainer going for air targets. Just the first shell is a tracer round, and that is a little bit weaker than the non-tracer rounds, the HEFI rounds, and they are also self-destroying, all three types. So after 1.2 kilometers of travel distance, they just explode in mid-air, and they also can give away your position. So again, fire them just when you can make sure that you hit your target. They are not the highest muzzle velocity, but they remain their muzzle velocity better than the 23s. The 23 default belt is not that bad compared to other nations' stock belts. You have no tracer round, you have no I mean, you have tracer as part of the fragmentation incendiary shells, but you have no pure tracer rounds, and you also have no pure AP rounds or practice shells. So every shell has kind of a damaging effect, a proper damaging effect. The armored targets is just a variation of that, with exchanging one fragmentation incendiary round for an armor piercing incendiary round, and the air targets are the other way around, exchanging from the default belt one API round for an fragmentation incendiary tracer round. And I personally would go for the air targets. Recently I tried out the stealth belt, which is a pure armor piercing incendiary round, so it doesn't do the explosion damage. So it very much depends where you hit the enemy. If you register either a pilot snap, that's good, or you register a hit in the engines, which is very likely then to catch fire, which is also very good, and, you know, completely ruins the performance of your opponent, and you then can hunt him down and make the killing blow, maybe with the 37, or you hit the fuel tank, again likewise it can catch fire. But many other parts like the weapon system or just empty parts of the wing will not get damaged that much, and those are, you know, those sparks, which are not enough damaging hits in this case. Also, the muzzle velocity is here actually listed with 610 meters per second. That's not a lot, and they also fall off quite a bit. So you have the German ME262 problem with the 30 millimeters, that you have slow muzzle velocity guns that also lose a lot of muzzle velocity very quickly. Again, engagements are below 400 meters are recommended in my opinion. And trigger discipline is very important. So this is the upgrade way, especially the 23 stock are very inaccurate. So, you know, short bursts and control bursts in the right situation are very important. If you think that you have let enough, lead more, especially the combination of slow muzzle velocity with rather low ammunition count, compared to 50 cals or 20 millimeters or even German 30 millimeter weapon systems, together with the loss of muzzle velocity, make those gun systems rather frustrating if you use them wrong. But they can make you can make them work if you use the right playstyle. And the right playstyle is something that the MiG-9 actually, or especially the MiG-9 late, is very good at. So now I actually want to show you certain scenes and want to run you through my thought process. So the last player here is an Arado, and he goes for obviously the base after probably have landed. I spotted him, I see the contrails in the clouds, see the black dot, and Arados can be fast, especially the C variant. Those 4 engines are very powerful. But this guy seems to have bombs, so it actually drags him down. And you can see I'm actually playing a lot with the, let's call it overdrive. It's not really WEP, it's 108% of engine power, and that tends to overheat. At higher speeds, at higher altitudes, you can use this much longer, but you have to be careful. You have no impact on it like on WEP, like with mech on props, but you can still make it work. It's kind of an art form. It's very important for getting the higher speeds, and, you know, to outrun certain enemies or out accelerate, which is also a key aspect. And now I'll show you some kind of trigger discipline. This Arado is right in front of me. I aim properly, he goes down, I hold my button, I hold my trigger, he doesn't, I don't have a lot of ammunition, and I made it work. Really nice. A really nice hit on its tail, securing me the 4th kill. The MiG-9 is a really nice beginner jet, I'd say. The MiG-9 late, that is. I have to fly the MiG-9 a few times to get the actual difference, but the weapon system behaves the same. The overall flight performance seems to be the same, but the major difference is that both planes, or that the first one, the first MiG-9, has no access to the 108% engine performance. So let's have a quick look at the post results for the first match, because that was, you know, just a 4-kill game. And we can see that I got 4 kills, and for that I got 82,000 silver lions and 6,170 research points. And that was with the not upgraded 23mm cannons and with the stealth belts for the 23s, if I remember correctly. You can see second place with 2,717 score points. The next scene is also versus two Arados, and watch how I engage him. I close the distance, obviously. He is not really aware of my presence, and I don't fire because I saw that he turned away, and I now follow him. While the Arado is a very dangerous plane in the right hands, in this situation I feel confident, and yes, I use 108%. And again, I don't fire, I hold my fire. He is diving. At a certain point he has no place to go, and he has to be on level ground, so to speak. Now I had the perfect lead, short burst, and I had him. That was 14 23mm rounds and 6, or let's say 5 37s. And you know, that was a very efficient kill. And now I use my amazing speed of nearly 900 kilometers an hour to hunt down the Arado 238 in front of me and to escape from the Me-262 behind me, because I know that I am faster. I just have to keep the distance from my enemies that want to hunt me down, and I need to close the distance to the ones that I want to hunt down, and that is very tricky. Now this vampire actually damaged this Arado, but he extinguished the fire and I kill him. Was that a kill steal? I think that was a kill secure, because Arados are very rugged. And now the Me-262 broke off, and I just want to actually hunt him down. But now I make a mistake and he goes head on, and I avoid the head on. That is a key aspect. Me-262s love a head on. I would love to go into that as well, but I don't have the ammunition to waste, therefore. And that was the scene that I wanted to show you. The next scene is against F-84s, which are very fast, they have an air start, and they love to rush in. This is on Korea, where the majority of games actually happen, and you know, it's a 7.0 match, which is also the majority of games that happen. Again, 8.0 matches are not that nice, actually, because of the TU4. And I thought I could hit him there, but not quite. So I slot on his tail, and yeah, I tried to actually not get blackened out, and you can see how inaccurate the guns are. But now he actually has to pull up again, and yeah, I missed the shot here. So you can see, even if you think you aim very good, the shells just go wide and spread out. Again, this is with not upgraded guns. And now that hit was very important, because it damaged the left wing and also hit his engine. And that is the key aspect, how to get F-84s. If you manage to get their engines, they just lose their main advantage, which is speed. Now I spread a little bit wide, another spark, and in this case it was literally a spark. You can see my ping of 27, of course, that's very bad, right? Yeah. So I close the distance and I spray a little bit, again a spark, because it was not a damaging hit, and he tries to avoid my fire. I know that at certain points he has to pull up, and I close the distance to such a degree that the 37 hits, registers, and blows him apart. And I actually went through so much ammunition that I have to go down, and I continue the scene because I want to actually show you an aspect. One aspect, and that is the belly landing and the energy retention. At this point I communicated with my team, I'm going back to base. I'm not that far away from it, so I think, you know, at this early on in the game I need to have ammunition. And as you can see, I just have 37 rounds left, but 46 of the 23s. So if you have to spray to have any chance of catching maybe the last enemy, use the 23s for them. The 37 is very precious, and you need to learn how to aim with them. So how to actually aim? Well, the key aspect is that the shells are mostly below your aiming reticle or your aiming circle, so you have to aim above the enemy, especially in a head-on, and they just touch the convergence point and then fall down again. So most of the time you're better off to aim above the target. And yeah, you can see how I have to actually play with the flaps to, or the flaps to keep the plane stable, and how this is the better option to belly land. And you can see I have no penalty in actually belly landing. But there is one aspect that you need to keep in mind. You are not registered as being dead, and you have the normal repair time, but you are registered as combat ineffective. So if you're the last player, don't do this. Try to land normally. I will point this out in the last game that I want to show you. So 4 minutes later we started again, we accelerated hard and we zoom climbed, and now I'm in a hard dive to catch this F-84, and you can see I reach over 940 kilometers an hour. You're able to reach just above 1,000 kilometers an hour without ripping your wings, at least at sea level, and he does not expect somebody to catch him. And I use this, boom. That's beautiful. It's so satisfying when that happens, because F-84s, they love to run, and you are the one able to catch them. In fact, I also do not really mind an up tier in this plane too much because of the performance difference, like in so many other planes. Like for example, a Meteor is certainly completely obsolete if the enemy jets don't fall for turn fighting you, and also the attacker is not. Well, the attacker can deal better with an up tier than the Meteor, but for example the P-80 doesn't have the proper acceleration, the energy retention, and also the firepower to justify to get into any kind of 8.0 match. That was a nice hit on the elevator of yet another F-84B, and there I made a little bit of mistake, and now I tried to go into a stall fight. And he's actually, you know, going in such a position that I turn fight with him, because he's turn fighting Yak 3. And now watch this kind of sad moment. Another hit, and I get clipped by the Yak 3 VK 107, I believe, and I get the kill on the F-84. Now I see how the plane lists, and this is a part of the damaging effect. Your inner wings get hit always very hard, and if they get hit, you lose all amounts of maneuverability. And I tried to land again. I still have a decent amount of ammunition for the overall amount that I have, but I felt like, yeah, it's better to go back and repair the damage. That's more important. And again, I want to use the belly landing aspect of it. And now you can see me actually screwing up. With damage on especially one wing being so hard, it's not recommended to do it, because you can lose control over the aircraft rather quickly. So you might be able to belly land, but you must not ram the nose down into the ground, because you can see it, that is. And I actually gave the team kill to the crazy Spitfire in the Yak 3, which was unfortunate. So be careful when to belly land. Again, it's not idiot safe. So this is finally the ace gameplay that I want to show you, and yes, it's yet another down tier. If the overwhelming majority of games are a down tier, well, you know, you have a benefit as being the top tier predator. But props have always a nasty sting, so to speak. They have weapons that really are very good in most of the cases, with a decent amount of ammunition and so on, and they, you know, they accelerate very, very fast. So I have the benefit of being a MiG-9, so I accelerate much faster than, for example, MA262 or a Horton 229, and that is your major advantage, because you can out accelerate them, but you still have the top speed. For example, a Meteor also can partially out accelerate enemies, but then it lacks the top speed, but therefore it has really, really great maneuverability. And watch what I'm doing here exactly. I'm accelerate on the deck 570. My engines are already orange, and at certain points you then have to cut the throttle to 100%. They will instantly cool down, or go out of the dangerous part. And there's also an internal timer on the engines to, if you take them too long into the orange or the red, therefore they will jump back in the critical temperature to a lower temperature, which then is very, very difficult to handle. However, at a normal 100%, you actually will never run into problems, except if the engine is damaged. But again, that's a different cost. And there you can see I use the air targets for both the 23s and the 37. And then I go into the zoom climb and watch this energy retention. This is just amazing. Maybe this is not the optimal climb angle. Maybe this is not how you do it perfectly, but it's good enough to make work. Now, in this case, you have to remember this thing. Me262s and Hortons in particular can also go very fast, but not as fast as you are, and they also don't have the acceleration that you have. But both the Horton and the Me262 are more maneuverable. The Me262 just, but the Horton, it's something that makes Spitfires cry, and then you have a dedicated turn fighter. Yes, the Horton 229 also is very good at boom and zooming, but not so good against the MiG-9. If you play it safe, if you play it correctly, you're virtually untouchable. And this is why the MiG-9 is the perfect training jet. Why? Because it packs a hard punch. It is the perfect training jet for the Soviets, because all the Soviet planes rely on the 23mm partially, and the entire MiG-9, MiG-9 late, MiG-15, MiG-15 bis, and MiG-17 have the very same weapon setup. 137 and 223s, and they're also centralized mounted in the fuselage. They have a bit variation in the exact position, but practically if you master the MiG-9 late, you have a good chance of learning how to fly the other Russian jets and also other nations' jets, because then you know what the MiG-9 is capable of and what actual boom and zoom can bring in for advantages. There I see the Heinkel 219 and the Horton 229, and I want to prioritize the Horton 229. I have such a performance advantage over the Heinkel 219 that I think that I always can outperform him relatively quickly. I go for the Horton, and yeah, he seems to be very oblivious to my presence, and I dunk the shots. That was very bad by me. Now he's aware that I'm there, and he turns, and I just simply zoom through. Nearly 600 kilometers an hour at over 3.5 kilometers of altitude. So early on in the game, that is really, really nice. And you just can make yourself, again, untouchable. And then there is this. Watch this, and how I lead the guns and how I position the aircraft. Very economic shooting, I have to say. And he burns down, and I let him burn. It's a German aircraft. They burn very reliable. German planes are reliable, always, especially in burning. Then there is another Horton 229, and watch my speed, 700 kilometers an hour. And now I go off from the 108% of power, and you can see that the engines cool down immediately. And I did not lead enough there, even at this rather short distance. And I just simply zoom through, and when I zoom through, I use the 108% of engine power, and you can see how this plane climbs, and the Horton 229s have absolutely no chance. They just don't have the energy output in the engines. They might have comparable top speed, but they can't make it work. All those beautiful Mk103 cannons with all those beautiful mine shells, and they can't make it work. And I know I don't go into a head-on with the Horton 229. And yeah, going sideways against the Horton is always nice, because then they can't correct their airplanes as a pure flying wing. So again, I zoom through, and now I actually am in the actual performance of the MiG-9. And I do what MiG-9 does best. Energy fights. Yes, I am actually energy fighting a Horton. Let's see how it goes. So he tries to zoom after me. This is a trick that I learned in arcade and then made it to perfection in my BF-109s. And I see that he can't hold the engine. Pilot snipe. Beautiful. Again, I have rather high amounts of ammunition left, and easy as that. So, and now I was at 4 kilometers altitude and I'm accelerating downwards. I'm diving. I have massive amounts of energy advantage, so no use for webbing or using 108% engine performance. Always try to keep the engines cooled. And yeah, the Horton 229, he was actually not my first primary target, but then he made himself a target by maneuvering that way. Now it seems like he sees me and he turns into me, so I don't use that. No, I go over 1,000 kilometers an hour, and now I want to zoom through towards the Me-262s. The distance is not the important part in the game. It's in chat gameplay, especially with chats that actually have speed. It's speed, retaining the speed, and not going into energy traps. Mastering that is the key aspect, and the MiG-9 does it, which makes it a very, very, rewarding chat. If you fly not very nicely, you get punished by the enemy. If you do everything right, you get the results. I should have not fired there. The Horton was going into a negative turn. This Horton here is relatively oblivious. He is hunting AI. And I'm wasting here a lot of ammunition, but he goes into a stall. It was just the last moment that I saw that he's actually missing the outer wing part. But hey, kill is kill. Was that kill securing? Again, it's a bit of a question, because Hortons can make it back to base in these conditions. I have seen them. If he was a good pilot, and I just noticed it at the last moment when I opened fire. So again, it's debatable. But again, I didn't see his engines smoking, and he didn't seem to have actual loss in performance. The AIs go for the ground units, really nice. And you can see I have still a lot of speed, and the engines are cool. Again, this is really nice. Over 870 kilometers an hour in level flight is with 100% engine performance is really nice. Then there is this Heinkel 16A. Close your eyes, kids. Yeah, that was the 37mm connecting. And again, I go head on with this Horton, and he commits to it, so I turn out of the way, and I'm safe. Not wasting any ammunition, keeping my speed. This is what the MiG-9 does best, especially in late games, where a lot of the enemies are shot down and where every kill counts. This is very important. I just have 4 37s remaining and 61 23s. So this Arado tries to bomb this MiG-9 behind him. Nice idea, but he just didn't cut it. So 2 drops, he's out of bombs. So yeah, and now this is team play, which is also very, very nice in the MiG-9. He thinks now he has the MiG-9, and I make my shots count. I love the 37 when it connects. Yeah, and this was a little bit of high wing. This Horton gets deleted in front of my eyes, fair enough. I have my ace. I'm out of 37 right now. I still have 46 rounds of 23mm, but I think at this moment go back to base and make it work. And it seems to be a sure thing, right? I have 5 kills. There are still a few allies flying around, so there is no danger that we can lose this, right? And you can see I'm just running from this Horton 229, and I think to myself, should I engage him? Should I not? He missed the approach on the MiG-9, but sadly the Mustang Mark I crashes. We had a fail platoon of 3 props, or actually 4 props, being squatted up with a 6.0 prop, and they all went into the chat game, which is not really nice. Now the Me-262 kills the Yak 3 DK. That is a bit of a problem, and suddenly suddenly it's looking much much more grave. There is one enemy, there is one ally left, and I think to myself, I'm sorry, buddy, but I can't help you. I'm at 900 kilometers an hour. One engine has a little bit of a damage, but it seems just the engine holding, but not the engine itself. But now I committed to the landing, and I try a belly landing again. Now here I tried to lose energy. Despite the MiG-9 having a lot of energy retention, you still can control your energy really good. It's a bit of a shame that this plane doesn't have an air brake. That's really a shame. And so you can see me here, the approach with 400. I also could do it with 500, but you know, I tried it. Also a little bit of cannon brake, and I touched down. And it was at this very moment, and a bit too late, that I realized that my last ally was shut down, the MiG-9. And I have no functional engine left. Well, I have one left, but I can't start anyways. But I'm not registered as being dead. I have the normal repair time. I'm the last player on my team. Yeah, and so it happens. I'm actually registered as being out of action right now, and it would be like 15 seconds left. Our team has lost all of the players, but that's not true. I'm not registered as being dead. I'm getting repaired, but yet we lose the match with 5 seconds of repair remaining, and that was a real heartbreaker. That I didn't remember that at that time. That was the lesson that I learned, and so I lost with 5 kills. It feels bad. So no boosters applied, 65,000 silver lines and 4,318 research points. And there you can see I was really angry at that moment. First place with 3,067 score points, and I still lost. The result, if I would have won, would have been amazing. Yeah, that's the MiG-9 late for you. A really great plane that actually deserves the name, chat. It doesn't really suffer performance-wise from the lack of upgrades when being stuck, but the weapons are not really great, and you have to upgrade them ASAP. Not the belts, but the accuracy, that is. So that's it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like if you did. It really helps the channel out greatly. Subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other in the skies of War Thunder.